Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Black Women Vote Democracy House. And if there is any place that you want to be, it is with these three dynamic leaders of the movement, Black women who are at the vanguard of voting rights protection for our people. And they are fabulous Black women as they do it. We are joined today in Democracy House by my dear friends, Judith Brown Dianis, who is the executive director of the Advancement Project, the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, Fatima Goss Graves, and the chair of the Young Lawyers Division, which she said all of us can be members of the National Bar Association, Onika Williams. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Michelle. Hi,
Well,
everybody.
I am so excited, but I also recognize we are coming to you 10 days before the election. And even as we think about that, we recognize that we have seen massive voter turnout all across the country. But yet, in spite of that turnout, we've seen a number of our people really face difficult long lines. We've seen questions about voter suppression. How are each of you doing your work as you look at and really take into consideration the challenges that we're seeing for voters at the polls right now? And Judy, I'm going to start with you because I love your necklace. So I'm going to
Thank
start with
you.
you.
Thank you. And I have on my Black Women Lead T-shirt too.
Hey.
Branding. So thanks. It's great to be here with you all. I'm actually coming to you live from Florida, and that is because I am going to be here through November 5th, because I was here right after the 2000 election, and I was here to investigate what happened to African American voters. So I just decided I got to come back to the scene of the crime, in order to make sure that Black folks don't get ripped off again. So I think that the work that Advancement Project has been doing in this election cycle is just a trajectory of the work that we started in. We opened our doors in '99, and the 2000 election happened, and we see this as a long-term fight for political power in this country, right? So we started off with this idea around who should vote in this country being only owned by white men who owned land. And so, as we have seen over time, the expansion of who gets to participate in our democracy, and we've had the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that was brought about because of lives that were lost and a movement. And now we're here voting in a pandemic, that there still are these like through lines about who gets to vote. And that's really what is at the heart of voter suppression, is that there are those who don't want all of us to participate. And so they create not only laws that make it harder for us to vote, but also the administrative things. And so a lot of the work we do at Advancement Project is not just we sue over things like, so for example, we sued over Florida, their online voter registration system went down on the last day of voter registration, this year. The same thing happened in Virginia. And so we moved very quickly to sue so that we could extend the time for people to register. But we also, in our day to day, work to push election officials, who are those local boards of elections and local clerks who are doing things under cover of night that we don't even know about, right? That we really do push, we investigate what they're doing, we push to make sure that they're using their discretion properly so that more voters can participate. This year, what we've seen is voting in a pandemic, and what we are experiencing is that those who don't want us, Black people, to vote, and Black women in particular, because they know that we turn out in big numbers, that the way that this is going down is that they want us to have to make a decision between our health and our right to vote. And Black women and Black people in general are like, no, we're not making a choice. We're going to either mask up, we're going to use those mail in ballots, and our voices are going to be heard this year.
Fatima, talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're working in partnership with a lot of organizations that mobilize women directly to both remind people of the reason they should vote. And one of the things around voter suppression is part of the suppression tactic is to make you think that your vote is unimportant, that your vote doesn't matter, that nothing matters. And so reminding people that they can actually make changes through voting, and whether that is because you have been working and caring for your kid at home all at the same time, or because you are outraged because you've lost loved ones in COVID, or whatever the thing that is your passion thing, getting information out both about voting and then the actual mechanisms around voting. And we've been spending a lot more time in Michigan this year with some of our partners on the ground, including our sisters who run Mothering Justice. And I know many of you guys know the great work that they're doing in Michigan and in Detroit in particular. And the very practical information around the how to vote. And Michigan had some really important changes in their laws this last year that have allowed it and made it easier to vote. And so people may be used to the old rules, and now it is far easier to vote. So now making that possible for people to get that information is where we're really focused in these last few days.
Ugh, I still can't believe it. And Onika, we have all been at the National Bar Association conference, and the Young Lawyers Division has always been engaged in election protection and voter protection work. Tell me a little bit underneath your chairwomanship,
Yes.
some of the work that you've been doing.
Yes, there's a Florida theme here. I am originally from Naranja, Florida, which is in Dade County. And for me, I was actually in the 12th grade in AP government during the 2000 election. And I was about 6 months short of being able to vote. And so that has colored my entire view of voting as being a native Floridian. And so as the chair of the Young Lawyers Division, we have gone full steam ahead with supporting the National Bar Association's election protection efforts. We've done everything from helping to raise money for the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition so that returning citizens in Florida could vote. We've become a When We All Vote partner. We are a National Voters Registration Day partner. Today is actually the inaugural Vote Early Day. You can come out and celebrate with us at 6 p.m. on Remo, be camera ready. So for the Young Lawyers Division, we have gone out of our way to make information accessible to our members and to our communities. As you know, we are heavy on the IG, and so that is how we get our information. And so making sure information such as voting registration dates, voting information, voting polls are accessible to our members and our communities is all of what the Young Lawyers have focused on for right now. In addition to the census, which is a different saga for a different day.
Yes, but I'm so glad that everyone here has been deeply involved in census work, right? Because we know we need to show up and be counted. Now, I want to, a through line, obviously, with all the great work that Higher Heights does, is connecting and really bringing Black women and centering the work of Black women. We've seen leaders like who should be the governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, with her work at Fair Fight. Some of our sisters on the front line, like Latasha Brown with Black Voters Matter, and Adrienne Shawspeare, one of the leaders of the SIP Hour. So I would like to hear from each of you how you think and the ways that you're seeing Black women really show up around voting rights work, around enfranchising our community, and in particular, the unique role that you think Black women play in the work of re-enfranchising and in enfranchising our communities. And Fatima, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, last night at the debate, I was sort of laughing that you had a Black woman moderating the debate, and that had been the missing piece because we already have Black women out there organizing voters to the polls, running for office in record numbers themselves, and now they have to moderate the debates too in order for us to have
every job, every job.
every single role they needed to do it. And I think what we're seeing is in some ways like Black feminism in action, the idea that community and that sort of shift is about yourself, but it's about your community as well. And so I feel like what we're seeing in action when I see my sisters on the ground organizing, sort of filling in, that comes from longstanding and deep roots. And I have a little bit of a worry that leadership isn't always seen and recognized for what it is. And so I'm always grateful to Higher Heights for their framework and their ability to lift it up and to lift up Black women who are leading at all levels and making this possible for us.
Judy.
Yeah, I think Fannie Lou Hamer, right? Like
Mhm.
we've always been in this fight, like on the front lines, and really leading the way for our people to participate, and just taking the hits where we take the hits. But I mean, it right now, I would say, I'm a little older than some of the people on this panel. And so I would say that I have seen a shift in the way in which Black women are centered in this work. Because I would say early on in my career, it was all about the men, the men, the men, the men, even though we were doing all the work. And now I think there are so many Black women leaders who are stepping out, not stepping up because they've been stepping up, but stepping out, right? And being like out front. I see it in the movement for Black Lives. I mean, just the reproductive justice world. We are, as we say in the movement for Black Lives, it's leaderful, right? And it's beautiful. And because I think it also connects to our families in really important ways in which we can lead in our work, and we can also say to our families and communities, this voting thing is important, right? And to be able to connect not just the need to vote, but the issues that we are dealing with, whether it is education, right? For our children who are learning remotely and maybe not learning, maybe they're remote, but they're not learning, right? To COVID, and our families knowing that, there's a Supreme Court case that will be decided right after the election that might get rid of the Affordable Care Act in the midst of a daggone pandemic, right? And so the ability for us to come as whole people and sisters and mothers and aunties and grandmas, et cetera, to this work, to be able to tell the story of what is happening to our people and to act on it is an incredible thing that is bubbling up in this moment that is really going to push us to another level in our fight for our freedom.
That's right. Oh, Onika, you got me over here on mute, amening and praising the Lord, but I put myself on mute so nobody has to hear me. Onika.
I completely agree. I think that we, as Black women, have always been the creative part of the family, and for us, especially during this time, during the pandemic, voting has always been life and death for us, life or death, and it is truly life or death now. We are in a time where, because of everything that is going on with voting, we are asking people, depending on their jurisdictions, to choose between their health and their right to vote. And Black women are coming up with different ways to find ways to raise money for masks, for PPE, for IG events to get the word out. And we continue to be creative because we've had to. That's how we survive.
That's right. That's so right. And
as my mama used to say, and everybody's mama probably said, make a way out of no way, right?
That's right. Amen. And the church says amen.
I don't think my mother actually came up with that one. I think
no, all of our moms came up with it. That's what happened there. But I want to actually stay there because when I think about a piece of my identity, I also think about being a Black woman with a disability, right? With immune autoimmune disease, that lupus that disproportionately affects women and Black women, and showing up to the polls really is a matter of me really thinking about what are the consequences for our health. And in many ways, you see how we've continually underfunded the resources that go to our community. I wonder how each of you are thinking about this unique public health crisis on top of all of the work historically that we've had to do in terms of looking at resources and election day administration, and then kind of traditional suppression tactics. We're now dealing with a real public health crisis. And I love to kind of get a sense of how each of you are approaching that work. And Onika, I'm just going to ask you to kick it off, and some of the work maybe that you're doing with some of the other chapters, or some of the work that you're doing with the NBA.
Sure. Because today is Vote Early Day, the inaugural Vote Early Day, we're actually having hashtag Young Black in Voting, where you can come and meet with us tonight so you can talk about your issues. I know for a fact that many of us are concerned. As we all know, COVID-19 has been devastating to our communities amongst everything else. And so we will actually be launching a voting guide tomorrow, where we're asking people, make sure that you have your cute mask, like be prepared to stand in line, but also when you have your selfie, make sure you have your cute mask and tag us so we can repost you. And so just remembering to give those key points in a way that the young lawyers will be receptive to it, whether that's as a selfie or a ussie or however it needs to be. Protect yourself and make sure you vote.
All right, Fatima.
Onika, I am loving being on this with you, by the way. The selfie or the ussie, I'm there. So in addition to that, my family lives in Michigan, which is one of the places that got hit early and devastatingly by COVID. In Detroit, something like 1 in 6 people who lived in Detroit got COVID. And so I had really deep worries about how we were going to actually have a situation where people were able to vote safely. And so I actually think there has been a really important response in Michigan that has spread out a lot of different places for early voting, and early voting starting much earlier than it had years before. So the first thing is getting out the word that people don't have to wait until election day. If they're voting in person, they can go, and they can go early, and they can try to go at times that are less crowded times. And I know we're already seeing really long lines in a lot of places and so some of it is hard, and having the PPE is important, but where you can, the ability to vote early, and others are voting, have their ballots and dropping them off at drop boxes early so they aren't standing in line. But this is sort of an early action campaign like we've never had to do before, so that people aren't having to make the sort of trade-offs between their health and their safety. But it is the thing about this election cycle that is truly, truly upsetting, because Black people would wait in those lines anyway.
That's right. That's right. Judy.
Yeah, so there are definitely politicians who want us to have to make a choice between our health and the right to vote, because they know that it would benefit them if we stayed home. And so this election cycle, our work around voter protection has shifted significantly. Because first we filed the first lawsuit that was a pandemic, voting in a pandemic lawsuit against the state of Florida, of course. And that was because it was a presidential primary, and the governor was like, oh, it's business as usual. And we were like, no, it's not. You need to make some changes in the way that voting happens. And we started to see that move across the country, that there were certain governors who were acting like business as usual, while other states really did move very quickly to change things. So in addition to the litigation, we've also had to do a big pivot to voter education, right? So we have on our website, advancementproject.org/vote, we have materials that people can use, and you can slap your logo on it for your organization, et cetera. We don't care. We just want you to use it. We have scripts for people to use for videos, because for us, where we believe that in this election cycle, it's also important to have trusted voices talking to our people. And trusted voices can be anybody. It's anybody with more than 10 Facebook friends or more than 5 IG followers. That's a trusted messenger. So we're encouraging people to, when you vote, and I did this when I voted in the state of Maryland, I made a video about how to do the mail-in ballot, because the thing is, for our people, we will vote, but this is new for us. We actually like going to the polls because that's a community affair. It's a cultural event. You get to see people you never see. You get to engage in political discussion. And so this time around, we have people who have decided for health reasons they can't do that. So we want to make sure that they're educated, that they have a plan, that they know exactly what to do. Make sure you read all those instructions, because your stuff could be thrown out. Then we're doing a public education campaign. We're moving into, from there, getting your ballot to voting your ballot, to track and fix or cure, which means that you have a mail-in ballot, it could be rejected. They're going to notify you. In most states, they'll notify you of what the problem is so that you can fix it. In some states like Texas, they ain't going to allow you to fix it. And so we want people to track and fix. So we're doing public education around that. And then, the other thing is, November 3rd is election day. It is not called election results day. And so that means that we should not expect, unless it's a landslide, we should not expect that the election will be called on November 3rd. So the other thing that we are doing is educating people about the fact that we need to make sure that every vote is counted. Because we have mail-in votes, that means there's going to be a delay in the time. And they also try to dismantle the daggone postal service, right? So, that's a new tool of
when you said dismantle, I was like, you mean dismantle the Voting Rights Act? Oh, I forgot about the post office.
I'm in the business of trying to figure out how you steal an election so I can stop it. But I would have never thought that you would dismantle the postal service, come rain, come snow, come sleet. I mean, what? So we're trying to make sure that people understand that the election results will not be in on November 3rd in all likelihood, and that we need to make sure that every vote counts. So a lot of voter education has had to be done this year that we haven't had to do in past years.
So one of the things that I love about each of you is that you bring such a joy to your work, right? This work is hard, and the wins can sometimes feel few and far between. But when you do have the win, right? When you open up access, when you were able to get the court to stay the closing of a polling place, it is just like an electric shock through your veins. But I'd love to hear from each of you what brings you the joy to do this work. Because I think sometimes when we hear messages of, voter suppression or intimidation, that sometimes can scare people. And there's so much anxiety right now that we also want to make sure that Black people know that we are a joyous people, right? We have a lot to be proud of and thankful for, and we stand on the shoulders of giants. So I'd like each of you to share your joy in doing this work. And so Onika, I'm going to start with you.
For me, I am a first-generation college student, first-generation law student. I am a proud granddaughter of sharecroppers, cab drivers, and being in this place at this time as chair during the pandemic with all that went on with the 2020 census and now during the 2020 election, I have to know that every day that I get up, I did all that I could do to help our members, to help our communities, especially being a native Floridian and being in AP government class during the 2020 election and watching my parents trying to figure out if polls were still open so that they could vote. And so, fast forward 20 years and I am able to help in a way that I've never been able to help before. And so for me, the joy is being able to get other young Black professional, young Black people in general, cousins, uncles, sisters, to get out, register to vote, use your voice, you matter, you count, and just being able to participate in the process.
Fatima.
So the thing that brings me the most joy is my belief that there are more of us and that we will win. And it may not be today, it may not always be tomorrow, but I just really believe it in my toes around the arc that we are on. And I'm sorry, like kids are returning from
This is not real, okay? When you're in the democracy house, you get the real.
This is the homeschooling, parenting, never-ending working situation. But I just believe that we will win, and so that brings me joy and actually clarity of purpose. But it also brings me joy to see so many of my sisters leading in this work in ways that I haven't seen. I feel like I am a cheerleader and fighter and all at the same time. So, the countdown is on, but I know we got this. I know we got this well. And again, Onika, let's remind Judy one more time that you were in the 12th grade.
She was litigating the case in Florida.
Look, we bring intergenerational fabulousness today, okay?
Yes.
And the Democracy House that Higher Heights has put together, intergenerational fabulousness.
And because of you, Judith, I'm here today. I'm here today.
All right, Judy, bring us.
So for me, other than Onika, what brings me joy in this work is number one, I have freedom dreams. That's number one. Number two is that I have 94-year-old Mrs. Applewhite, who was a plaintiff in our case when we won and struck down voter ID in Pennsylvania. 102-year-old Dessalene Victor, who was sitting at a polling place for hours in Florida, and we helped her vote, and then we brought her to the White House to meet President Obama so she could be there for the State of the Union. And Desmond Meade, and the 1.4 million people who had their rights restored in the state of Florida. We were a founding member of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. And I remember a time when no one believed that Amendment 4 could happen. And I was there on Victory Night, and I cried like a baby to see all of these sisters and brothers who wanted to vote, but because of a system of criminalization of Black people that dated back actually to right after Reconstruction, they could not vote. And so to see them that night and to work with them and support them in Norris Henderson and New Orleans, that brings me joy, because I know how much our people want to participate, and I know how long this journey has been and how hard it's been.
See, you got to end on joy, because I know all of us have chills right now. Onika, Fatima, Judy, we are so thankful for you. I think when Constance Baker Motley and Fannie Lou Hamer and Shirley Chisholm are hanging up in heaven, they're like, oh, look at my little sisters looking all cute in this Higher Heights Democracy House. Like, I know that that's the conversation that the Ann sisters are having about us, about the work that you do all day. And it just brings me such great honor and joy to count you as friends and advocates and fighters and co-conspirators mothers and prayer warriors and sisters in this work. If you want to follow along, please follow Higher Heights. Black Women Vote is one of the hashtags that we're using. Own Your Vote. Follow all of these fabulous women on Twitter, on the gram. Stay in touch on Facebook. The great work that they're doing. We need them, and we need you to support them with the work that they're doing. We love you. We appreciate you. Say bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.